it's Mr. Kovac here from 31 Squadron, and today we're going to be learning how to iron your jumper and take care of your jumper. Okay, first step first, every cadet, regardless of who you are, regardless of what your rank is, even members of staff, you should all have a shoelace in your jumper, okay? The reason why we put the shoelace into the jumper is so that it can tighten the neckline so that your jumper comes right up to your collar. The last thing you want is for your jumper to be on you whilst you're wearing it, and then for the collar to be splaying and spreading out, okay? You want it to be tight against your shirt collar. And this is when you're wearing light blues especially, it's very important. And the way you get it in is just to poke a hole, and you don't even actually need to poke a hole. Just force the hard bit of the shoelace through the weaving of your jumper, and it will take some time, but just gently just pass it through. It takes quite a long time, and then bring it in back to the center. And when you wear it, you should then tighten the jumper, the shoelaces, and then do a discreet knot, and then tuck that back in, and that makes sure that the neckline of the jumper is nice and tight against your collar, okay? It doesn't have to be tight as such, but it is flush against your collar, okay? Secondly, if you're a cadet that doesn't have a lanyard, don't worry about the button, but if you are an NCO or a cadet that has a lanyard, whether it's JL, Quake or MOI, the button should be right in the middle of the patch. You don't even have to really measure it, but just put it in the middle of the patch from either corner, and the button should come right to the bottom of the patch, okay? Don't have the button down too low. It should be right at the top, okay? And that makes sure that that ensures that your lanyard is in the correct place, okay? Third point, make sure you do actually write your name in the tag, okay? You'd be surprised when you go to events and maybe it gets too hot. Everyone is told to take their jumpers off. The last thing you want is to lose your jumper. So actually put something in the tag of your jumper, okay? So in terms of ironing the jumper, iron every single patch that is on the jumper, okay? The elbow pad needs ironing on both arms, okay? But the two most important bits are your epaulets, the shoulder bits, and your pen pocket. The worst thing that I hate seeing on uniform inspections is the tip of the pen pocket riding up and it curls up. You need to focus on every single part of the pen pocket, okay? The way you iron this, very simply, take it off of the pocket and put the pen pocket down facing up. So the outside should be facing up. The best thing to do is to then put a towel or a cloth over it so it doesn't go shiny in the edges. But my iron isn't too hot, so I'm happy to do that. And just gently, just go over the pen pocket, and then as it's still warm, curl the tip of it down, and just let that sit whilst it cools down. Let it go, and then lay that back down onto the jumper, okay? And that ensures that that tip does not ride up, okay? So that's one thing you really have to be careful of, is that the tip of the pen pocket doesn't ride up when you're in your jumpers, whether it's dark blue shirts or light blue shirts. Next thing is your epaulets. Again, the end of your epaulets have a tendency to curl up, okay? After you've had it for a couple of years, after you've had the jumper for a couple of years, if you've not changed size, they tend to curl up. Very simply, two things you need to do. When you iron it, iron the epaulet, this time with the Velcro facing up, okay? And you don't want to actually let your iron touch the Velcro patch because it could melt it, but just iron the main body of the epaulet, and then when you get to the tip of it, flip it, and just iron the tip of that epaulet. Just where it curves, just the curved bit, just iron that bit down. And as it's still warm, tightly roll that top bit of the epaulet. Just let that sit, and then lay that down onto your jumper like so. And that will sit perfectly, okay? So that's the first part of the epaulet. The second bit that you really need to be careful about is the actual shoulder patches. When you get them out of your packet, when you get the jumper out of the packet, the shoulder patches are creased and you do need to actually iron them, okay? And it's very simple, okay? All you need to do is lay the jumper down flat and just feel for anything that may be underneath. Make sure there's nothing, no folded bits of material. Use the base of your iron. The base of your iron is most likely going to be square or square sort of shaped. And use the base It's even better if you actually undo the epaulet and use the base and put that in. Make sure iron is not too hot. If it is too hot, it could melt or burn the rest of the jumper. So to prevent that happening, put a towel just at the start of the shoulder patch here, so that it doesn't burn or melt any of the rest of the jumper. And then just use the base of your iron to go in very gently. If you've got a button on the other shoulder patch, again, just use the tip of your iron then and work it into that area there. Do the exact same thing for the back. The back needs ironing as well, okay? The last thing you need to be careful of is your jumper bubbling, okay? It's very, very common that a jumper, after a couple of wears, will start to bubble, okay? And you can see it just around the armpit area here. I'm not sure if my camera will catch it, but bubbling happens when the two pieces of material start rubbing on each other and they start creating bubbles. The easiest way to get that off, people would most likely think, is to use a razor stick. It's dangerous to use a razor stick because you could cut the jumper and then you have a hole. That's just creating another problem. The best thing to do is to get an Amazon bubble remover, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, and the bubble remover looks like this. It's got a little cartridge here to catch all the dust. And all you need to do is literally turn it on. It's got a little blade inside there, and just very slowly go over the jumper like so. It takes a long time to do it, but it's worth it and it doesn't cut your jumper. So when you start to see your jumper bubble up, it will tend to happen around the bottom. That's just what it does. Just get your bubble remover. It's for about £5 on Amazon. It's worth the buy because you can not only use it on yourself, you can use it on other cadets as well. If you're an NCO or if you're a keen cadet that's into uniform, use that and that will get all the bubbles off your jumper. Okay. Last thing. When you're wearing your jumper, it's important to obviously make sure that you curl the sleeve, the end of the sleeve, the cuff up. Okay, and make sure that it is also dirt free. It's important to make sure the jumper doesn't have any bits of fluff. Remember, your jumper is a dark color. Anything that is bright will stand out against it, and it's very easy to pick it out. So it's important before uniform inspection that you check yourself and make sure everything is clean. Okay, so just to recap very quickly, the first thing that you need to do with your jumper is put a lace into it. That's very important. These are a bit long. You can obviously use shorter ones, it doesn't really matter, but make sure you put laces in your jumper. Second thing, when you're ironing your jumper, make sure you focus on the pen pocket, especially the tip, and the elbow patches. Don't forget them, they also get creased. Next thing, the shoulder patches, the epaulets need to be ironed completely. Always use a cloth on top of them and the pen pocket. It just prevents it burning and turning a horrible color. Next thing, make sure the shoulder patches are ironed, okay? And again, to prevent the rest of the jumper burning or melting, put a cloth on top of that part because your iron will most likely melt the blend of material because this jumper is not pure cotton, okay? And the last thing, make sure that you do use a bubble remover to get any fluff and any bubbles off your jumper so that it does not look fuzzy and untidy. And last thing, of course, when you're wearing your jumper, make sure that you roll the sleeves back onto themselves. And that is how you take care of a blues jumper.